My name is Rogathx of the WeeklyValorCap, and this is the WeeklyValorCap raid guide for Horridon. Strategies may vary from 10 to 25 man, so please do keep in mind that this is based off the 10 man version. This fight is one of my favorite fights, as it features several phases. I like to call this a 6-phase fight, with 4 periods in between the first 4 phases. I like to call these periods burst phases. It's important to keep in mind that these first 4 phases are very similar, as they all start as a door opens, and they're all based on getting rid of ads. All 4 doors will introduce several ads, with one special one having more health and being far more dangerous. So how do you deal with Horridon's abilities? Horridon has 3 abilities. One is called Double Swipe. Double Swipe causes Horridon to deal damage to all players in a 35-yard cone in front of him and behind him. To counter this, simply have everyone except the main tank position themselves on his sides. Horridon also uses Charge. This ability will be used on a random raid member, and once he reaches his target, he will use an instant Double Swipe. To counter this, we simply have the targeted raid member run below Horridon, resulting in 0 movement speed required by everyone else. Horridon's last ability is Triple Puncture. This deals a lot of damage to the main tank and applies a stacking debuff, which increases the damage taken on the tank from Triple Puncture by 10%. This ability makes the encounter require several tank swaps. On average, a phase will require the main tank to reach 6 or 7 stacks of Triple Puncture. Because of this, the tank swap should be done immediately after the end of the phase. The first phase begins when the northwestern door opens and lasts until the eventual Dynamancer is killed. This first phase introduces 3 ads with very different abilities. The first 2 ads will always be a Stone Gazer and a Skirmisher. The Skirmisher has absolutely 0 abilities that are worth looking out for, and as such, it is the lowest priority. The Stone Gazer, however, will cast a stun on a random raid member from time to time. This can be interrupted, and it is very recommended that you do so, but if you do have very low DPS, I do suggest that you burst these down immediately so that you won't have one up as the actual Waste Walker spawns. The Waste Walker is the 3rd ad, and definitely the most dangerous. This ad has 2 abilities. The first ability is called Blazing Sunlight. Blazing Sunlight targets a random raid member and leaves a dot which deals fire damage every second for about 30 seconds. The second ability you will be dealing with is called Sand Trap. Sand Trap will be cast on the floor, and it will expand over time and deal tons of damage to every raid member standing inside of it. To deal with this, simply make sure you run away from it right away. If you're not with very good gear, it's very much ideal to spec for movement speed increasing effects. 1 minute into this phase, a Dynamancer will spawn. This ad will cast a healing ability on Horridon from time to time, and as such, it is very crucial that you interrupt it. Once this ad reaches 50% health, it will transform into a dinosaur and it will drop an orb. It is very important that a raid member picks up this orb right away, as that will end the first phase and stop the ads from spawning. I recommend that a melee DPS pick this up, as it secures least possible movement speed requirements. Should your setup not involve a melee DPS, I suggest assigning a ranged DPS for the job along with backup. When it's picked up and the phase ends, the first burst phase begins. During this burst phase, your raid members will basically have about 40 seconds to burst Horridon until the second door opens, and as such, the second phase will begin. The second phase begins when the northeastern door opens. This phase introduces 3 new ads to take the place of the former 3 ads. These 3 ads are called Bloodlord, Venom Priest, and Venomous Effusion. The Bloodlord will be your lowest priority, as all it does is charging a random raid member from time to time, leaving a dot that deals damage over time. This counts as a bleed effect. The Venom Priest is your highest priority, as it casts Venom Bolt Volley. Should this cast be successful, the entire raid will be left with a stacking debuff that deals damage over time. It's highly recommended that raid members interrupt these casts, and it's ideal to assign certain people to it should this be an issue. The Venomous Effusion is the 3rd ad, and can in fact be avoided entirely if your DPS is high enough. This ad will be summoned by the Venom Priest and will cast Venom Bolt Volley as well. It will also place Living Poison under it when spawned, which deals heavy damage to anyone standing inside of it. Keep in mind that this ground effect slowly moves around. Like in phase 1, a Dynamancer will spawn after 1 minute, and you will deal with it exactly as mentioned previously in the video. Once it dies, the second phase ends and burst phase number 2 begins. Phase 3 begins as the southeastern door opens. You'll be dealing with 3 new ads. 2 of the ads, Champion and Warrior, are untankable. These ads will target random raid members and place a disease on these targets called Deadly Plague. This should always be dispelled. The highest priority is the Warlord, which has 2 abilities. Mortal Strike is an ability only used on the tank having the ad. It deals quite some damage and also leaves a debuff which decreases healing received by 50% for about 8 seconds. The second ability is Frozen Orb. This orb will slowly move around the entire arena and will cast Frozen Bolt to anyone within 8 yards of it. This will deal damage every second and reduce movement speed. Like in Phase 1 and 2, a Dynamancer will appear after 1 minute and it will be dealt with in the same manner as previously mentioned. The phase ends with the orb when the orb is picked up, and at this point the third burst phase begins. Phase number 4 begins when the southwestern door opens. This phase will introduce 3 or 4 ads depending on how you look at it. The first ads to take notice of are the Protector and Flamecaster. The Protector will do nothing but basic attack, and as such it is the lowest priority. The Flamecaster will cast Fireball at random raid members non-stop. Because this ability deals such heavy damage, it should be interrupted. Over time you will be introduced to the Warbear, which deals a large amount of damage in front of it through swipe. Once this ad dies, the Rider, the Shaman, will be your enemy. This ad is extremely dangerous if you do not spread. Because of this, make sure you only kill one Warbear at a time and then dispose of the Shaman before taking down another Warbear. The Shaman will cast Chain Lightning, which deals increasing damage for every raid member it hits, up to a total of 3 people. To counter this ability, make sure all raid members are spread 5 yards from each other. It will also cast Hex Confusion, which gives the targeted raid member a 50% chance to injure him or herself with abilities. This should be dispelled. Last, the Shaman will place Lightning Nova Totems on the ground, which will deal tons of damage on hit. To counter this, make sure every raid member stays 8 yards away from every totem. Like in the previous phases, a Dynamancer will spawn after a minute, and it will be dealt with exactly as previously mentioned. At the end of this phase, instead of a 40-second burst phase, you will have about a full minute to burst the boss before the 5th phase begins. Phase 5 begins when the War God Jalek enters the arena. He will constantly basic hit the tank and cast Bestial Cry, which deals a lot of physical damage to all raid members. For every cast, it also applies a stacking debuff to every raid member, which will increase the damage of the next cast by 25%. The phase ends once Jalek dies. I recommend that you pop all major cooldowns when he spawns, such as Bloodlust or Time Warp, Arm with the Dead, Stampede, and so on. He will wipe your raid if he goes down too slow, and as such, if your DPSs are in fact not powerful enough, this encounter will prove to be impossible for you to complete. Phase 6 is technically still part of Phase 5, but because they're so different from each other, I've decided to call this the 6th phase. This starts once War God Jalek dies, and in this phase, Horridon will enrage, resulting in him attacking 50% faster and dealing 100% more damage. During this phase, he'll be using the exact same abilities that he's been using throughout the entire encounter. This phase ends upon Horridon's death. Thank you for watching the WeeklyValorCap Horridon Raid Guide. If you like this video, please show us by clicking the like button and subscribe to our channel for more raid guides in the future. My name is your Rogathx, and I'll see you later.